watching Property TV.
Hello and welcome to Property Question Time. I'm Stephen Galpin and this is the programme where you can have your property related questions answered by our team of experts. And joining me today for the second time is Neale. Welcome, Nick.
Hiya.
Good to have you back. Shouldn't be so nervous today because this is your second programme, so that's good news. Nice to have you back. And Byron Crellin, CEO of Debt Squared Group. Good to see you, Byron.
Hi, Stephen.
Hope you had a good trip down.
Indeed.
I should have said Nick is founder of Griffin Property Co. and is specialist in residential property sales, I would think, really. So there we go. Byron, your first question. I'm a director of a house building construction company and we've had a series of attempted break-in into our sites. When we're not on site, we have used security guards to patrol our sites, but this has not always been successful and can be quite costly. Can the panel give me any alternative measures that we could consider? That's an eternal problem, isn't it, with a construction site?
It's not breaking news that they're getting broken into.
No.
Yeah, we look after a number of northwest sites, and the trend from where it was 10 years ago, it was you'd have a hut and you'd have a guard and a dog doing patrols and you'd have kids having a go. Now it can be organised crime by certain sectors.
Well, materials are so expensive now,
Correct.
aren't they?
Yeah. So when a building site goes live, it is a magnet. So what we be providing clients is the CCTV towers and 24/7 monitoring. It starts with also the perimeter of the site, making sure that the perimeter is tight, that it's safe for the public as well. And there is, sometimes you come across sites and you have to sort of take the client on a bit of a journey to say, this site's not even, secure for your own staff. So we need to make sure that, you've got the right processes in place, one way in, one way out, etc. And we're controlling traffic. But some states that we're managing are smaller states and they haven't got the budgets for that, and therefore they're doing everything that's perfectly legal. But the threat is there, and CCTV towers is now the go-to.
Yeah.
Now it's now the go-to. We don't even sell that product to a client. The client knows what they need. Man guarding is always going to be there, and the physical presence is good, it's having somebody there in a jacket, etc. But with respect, towers captures everything, it records everything. It can record a vehicle registration. That's the deterrent. You've got an individual there.
But it's all cost, isn't it? And it's all cost on construction, which isn't helpful to the market. I mean, I was just looking down the road here. There's a site down here under construction. Yes, they've got a pretty secure sort of yard facility, where the paving slabs are on the bricks and that sort of thing. But then next to that, they built a secure building, for white goods, for easily stealable product, I suppose. But it's all cost, isn't it?
Absolutely. And when we went into lockdown, a lot of these sites became ghost towns. And they by being closed and going into lockdown, a lot of these sites then became, a risk. Insurers got nervous, and the build out's been delayed, etc. But there is massive amount of activity. This isn't about doom and gloom. This is, there's a lot of positive. There's always building going on. I mean, I've never known a market space to be so buoyant in dark times. We're in a pandemic, but building's still going on, but not as quickly as.
But again, I think. For the general public, they probably don't think about it, but the actual component costs of building are so expensive. I mean, you get a set of white goods, for instance, for an apartment's kitchen, can be easily £3,000 or £4,000.
But it even starts before that, Stephen. When they've acquired the site, we've got security guards, we've got towers on site. They haven't put a spade in the ground yet. They're still going through that architects. Nobody knows that the artists are still doing the fancy stuff.
CGI.
Yeah. And we'll be there for 2-3 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, technology, I think, is the answer.
Yeah. And is there anything new and upcoming in technology that's going to do this apart from towers and CCTV?
Yeah, but I'd be in danger of overselling my company. So,
Right,
and,
okay.
and,
Well,
and you'd shout at me.
If you told him, you'd have to kill him, wouldn't you?
Yes,
Correct.
I'm
Correct.
afraid we can't have any advertising, but no. I mean, I presume this is going to, all sorts.
Technology is the way. And what CCTV was, I mean, we'll launch Q2 new where we can do it on face.
Mm. But I think I saw on somebody's website there's even sort of mobile, almost little wheel-based drones that can control the site.
We were out on a site last week, and because of the logistics of the site, we had drones up, and that was starting to become sort of more of in our life to do that now. Yeah. Which where historically we wouldn't do that. We'd go around, take a picture on our phone, send it to the client and say that's your site. Now it's here's a video, here's the drone, blah blah blah.
I can remember the difficulty of installing CCTV, and we've got a site we're doing last year that was vacant, and I rang up one of the guys. He said, "Yeah, 3 cameras straight in, battery powered, all linked to the Wi-Fi, and mobile response." And basically, if you've got someone on site, you get a phone call. Do you need someone to go out? And it was an absolute game changer for us.
Well, we've got
really good.
We have with all of our towers. It all points into our control room.
Yeah.
And the first thing you do with the client is to say when we're starting this, if we see something, do you want us to deal with it, or do you want us to ring you? And it's like the whole thing is like, concierge service. It's like you get on with it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, you don't want to be going in there at 3 o'clock in the morning when, you don't know what you're going to find really. So send the professionals in, I think, is the best way, isn't it?
We never sleep, 24/7.
Oh, that's it. That's the one. Yeah.
Well, I think we're getting a bit close to advertising here, so I think we'll move on. Okay, Nick, your first question. When placing a property for sale with an agent, how important do the experts think it is to appoint a geographically local agent as opposed to perhaps a more nationally focused agent, perhaps not so close to the property? I know that national agencies will have a larger database of clients, but is that the only consideration?
I don't think it's necessary now to use a local agent if you don't need to. Again, it's if you have a specialist property that's in a particularly quaint village that a certain local agent is known to specialise in, there may be, but 95% of the properties in this country can go onto a national agency site. They get advertised again on all the national portals. So local knowledge, realistically, I don't think nowadays is essential. Again, if you're a slightly nervous vendor who's not confident in selling it, in selling the property yourself, then it might be worth using a local agent. But again, you're going to pay the fee for it. You're going to pay for that service. But there's no restriction as to because if you think the main property portals that all the properties get advertised on are national.
Yes.
And that's where I can remember the old days of clusters of estate agents in the same streets when on a Saturday morning or Sunday, the potential buyers would go from agency to agency with the folders stuff full of property particulars, and they check the local paper every week for the new listings. That's all gone. That's all gone now. The first point of call is the main national portals. Any agent who's worth their salt is on those portals, and that's the first point of call. So whether you're based in, like we are down in Essex, or up in Scotland or wherever, you'll go to the national portals, and as such, national agents will cover you.
Well, it's probably several years since I've done any property trading, but one of the always useful things, which I've mentioned on our programme before, was if you found a property with an agent that was out of area, they'd be using that agent because either the local agents wouldn't support the price they were asking, or it was perhaps a personal contact within the agency. But either way, this agency would be out of sync. They'd either be charging much too much because it was justifying a price that he'd been asked to do, or he'd undersell it because it wasn't in his area, didn't really want it, and just wanted to get it out of the way. So you could actually find some good opportunities. But I think you're right, with now the national portals, it's so easy to compare, isn't it? It's so easy to get your guide.
Yeah, definitely.
It really is. And even with the purely online agents, you can still do the same because you're using the same portals.
Exactly. We're all ending up at the same place effectively. There is a slight market. So for the bespoke agency, say in the little village, that has clientele that say, I definitely want to buy in this particular street, then it may be worth, if you have, say, again, a slightly unusual property or it's in a really sought after area, it might be worth going to that local agent. However, if it's a general house in a general street in a general town in the country, there's no reason why you can't use either a national agency or a local. It depends on what your fee structure is and whether you're willing to do a little bit more to save yourself commission.
I think there's a kind of moral there in a way, isn't there? In some ways, we've got much more choice over agency and the style and type of way you sell your property. You've got to be prepared to do a little bit of work, whatever your choice, haven't you?
Yeah.
But at least the choices are there for you and the information is there for you so easily, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, at one time, you used to have to sort of rely on agents giving comparables and you're checking this and checking that. Now you just click onto the portals and you've got the whole lot. You can have your whole street specified as to the last sales, can't you?
Yeah. I mean, I can go back to, again, the days before the portals were there, that we'd get surveyors, valuers ring us up for comparables in the area and they'd, ask the questions. So they would then form an opinion. And it's the same as when you went to an agent would then work on what they'd sold locally because that's the only information they had. But nowadays, we go to evaluation, we'll go straight on to, again, some of the portals, click, as you say, click on the address, click on the local area, it tells you what the properties are sold for, what, the 3 beds, 4 beds, 2 beds, whatever they are, and you can get actually get a very accurate valuation by using the same system that the agents use effectively.
We're a big fan of promoting sort of regional experience. So we'll do EPC for clients.
Right, yeah.
But we'll use regional contractors.
Yes.
So we always promote a nation service, but with a local knowledge.
Yeah.
And we'll promote the fact that we'll be using hubs.
Well, we'll have to. I mean,
they're on the ground.
When we get asked to say to provide EPCs or gas certs that are out the area, or say property details as in the photos and floor plans, we'll farm that out to local contractors all around the UK. So it's not that I'm sending someone, completely out of the area. But the expert, from my point of view, I think the expertise is to package the property for sale. So you either, you do a decent set of photos, you do a decent floor plan, you give the purchaser as much information as they can see to persuade them to come and look at it. And your first point of call, again, is to get that advertised properly on the national portals, whoever does it, that's it.
Okay, all right. Thank you both very much indeed for that. That's all we've got time for in this half of the show, so join me again after the break.
You are watching Property TV. You are watching Property TV.
Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Property Question Time. I'm Stephen Galpin and I'm joined by Byron Crellin and Neale answering your questions. So Byron, your second question. I'm a partner of a property management agency. We operate across the southwest, managing a mixture of commercial and residential portfolios for landlords and investors. We have a number of vacant properties and use regional agents to manage these on our behalf. Each agency we use provide us with different levels of reports and information. Can the panel recommend any set processes, reporting or even technology that we can ask our agents to use to help us structure a better reporting communication across all our contractors? Yeah, buy some software.
I was going to say that. Is that a question or?
It's almost a statement, isn't it?
I actually think that's probably more you than me.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, you've got it, so let's have your answer.
I would say, well, step in if you feel I'm going off point, but what are they trying to achieve? I think is my thought process.
Yeah.
So I think what they're trying to achieve is they want some consistency. We've come across it before where we're working for a client and we'll be one of many multiple contractors. So we do our job, put a bow on it, give it back to the client, and the client goes, great, thanks very much. But another agent will do something in a different way. The report will be different, the timescales will be different, the response to something going wrong will be different. So I'm trying to quickly digest that very short, punchy question. I think the solution would be to maybe going to tender is probably a bit too over the top, but reaching out to an agent that's got probably more geographical resource and infrastructure that can offer some set KPIs. Agree basically reach out to an organisation, but basically say what I'm looking for is this, and then invite that organisation to put a presentation package together to say this is what we can do. We can deliver this on set days, agree KPIs, manage your expectations, but engage with a party that's willing to work with you and develop something. Technology will come with that.
Well, I think one of the fears I have about all this, and I talk to a lot of people who take on the requirement for good software for reporting.
Yeah.
And it's this, the problem is if you start looking at bespoke programs, people greatly underestimate the time, the effort, the cost of creating something bespoke. There are so many good standard programs.
Yeah, platforms that are out there.
Yeah, that have been through all the issues that you can come up with.
Yeah.
But it's like a lot of things in life. You've got to do the work, you've got to research it, do your due diligence. And I think talk to people that have used the very system that you're looking at.
Yeah.
Not something similar,
Yeah.
but the very system.
Yeah.
And I don't think any credible company will withhold from you perhaps a list of clients that are prepared to...
The reality is what they need is to meet with the insurance requirements. So to meet with the insurance requirements is they're going to need to partner with one or two or three partners that can deliver and manage and not expose the client and their clients in terms of their portfolios. That's fundamental. Condition with that will be software programs that our respective businesses will have software technology that we all say to our clients, oh, you can go online and download a report, or you can do this, you can do X, Y. That's not uncommon. I think the USPs that we have to look for when we're talking to a client about offering our services to try and consolidate a busy portfolio that's across an area is to say, strip it back to basics. What's the fundamentals that you want? What's your wish list? And build it out, bespoke it, tailor it to the client, get the client on the journey with you. Manage cost expectation, of course. But yeah, I mean, technology is the virtual employee in our lives.
Yeah.
And I think the thing to remember, if you're not particularly sort of IT savvy, it's so easy that these days. I mean, I've just changed accounting program for myself, and you start to ask yourself this. You think, Christ, what about this? What about that? And you go on the FAQs, and everybody's done it all before. Everybody's had the same questions, and it just works like a dream. I've just changed over laptops and things from. Well, I won't say from what to what, but I've just...
That's advertising, Stephen.
Yes, it is. But so I've just changed. And I found it a bit traumatic because I've been with the old system for, 20 years. Yeah. But now, after 2 weeks, I mean, they all laugh at me in here, but after 2 weeks, I sort of got the hang of it and stream's in front now. So I think it's all about due diligence, and it's all about really identifying, which I think was your point really, identifying what you need and what for. Yeah.
Don't just take something on because you think that is going to work for you. Break down what you want, find a partner,
it's purpose.
And build it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you for that, Byron.
Pleasure. How did it do? Was that all right for you?
That's very good. Very good. Yeah.
That's put you right, has it? Yeah.
Yes,
Good. Okay. Nick, your final question. When selecting an estate agent, what qualifications or membership of trade bodies should I look for? And can the experts guide me as to what protection membership of these associations or qualifications will give to me?
Very good question. In the UK, estate agency isn't regulated as in the US, or I think in Europe as well. So there's a couple of trade bodies out there, and they're voluntary. So you've got the NAEA, which is the National Association of Estate Agents for Selling Agents, and then I think it's ALA, which is
letting agents.
Letting agents, yes. These two are self-regulating within the industry, so they're not government-backed, and it's a voluntary system to join them. The good thing about those, though, is the second level. So to be a part of those organisations, they have to have indemnity insurance, they have to have client money protect, and they have to have a redress scheme.
An ombudsman.
An ombudsman.
Yeah.
Well, this is the key point. So there's two systems there. There's the property redress scheme, or the property ombudsman service, and they have to be a member of one of those schemes. Now, those two schemes are government backed. So if you do have a problem, unfortunately, which happens, it happens in every industry. If you do have a problem, you've at least got a government backed organisation that you can go and take your gripe to after you've gone through complaints process and all the rest of it. And the other good thing as well, I think, about if an agent is a part of, demonstrates a part of a, say, one of these, the ANEA or ALA or Property Ombudsman scheme, is it just shows a level of professionalism within that estate agency.
It's a kite mark, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a kite mark. Yeah, it's that sort of thing. You know, anyone can set up and call themselves a letting agent or an estate agent, but you have to go through a few, you know, a few hoops and bells and whistles and all the rest of it to get that, you know, that kite mark, as you say, of joining those schemes. And it just gives you a certain level of protection as the professionalism of that agency, really.
I mean, again, we've had this discussion before on the programme, but I mean, my personal view is two things. I think if you want to be a residential landlord, I think you should be subject to a competence test with your local authority, just a fairly simple one, but a basic one, to make sure that you understand what your obligations are. And in terms of agency, my feeling is I think there should be some obligation to join a trade association like the NEA or something similar.
To be accountable.
Just to be accountable.
Yeah.
You know, this has been talked about for a long, long time. And unfortunately, it sort of came in later on. There's a few corporates that go through the training schemes and accreditation schemes and all the rest of it. But again, for an independent agent, a small agent, it's the cost of putting their people through, you know, this sort of scenario, I think, is putting some people off.
I agree with you, Nick. But, you know, if you remember in our break, we were just smiling about a couple of things that, you know, let's say some negotiators can do who work for agents, and usually very young and very inexperienced ones, don't mean any harm, don't mean any fraud or any whatever, but make mistakes.
There's no malice, but inexperience.
No. Yeah. I mean, there was a system, I don't know if it's still current, and it used to be amongst the independents. So what you would do is you would effectively not take on a new person unless they'd been through a corporate system first. So they'd do a couple of years in a corporate agency, get the training through the corporate agency because their training systems are that much better, and then you poach them effectively because they had that training in place. And in truth, I would have no problem with having recognised accreditation and exams and training systems, but there's so many different systems out there, and also there's so many different agents and agencies, and to try and bring it all under one.
These days we even ask estate agents to start looking into money laundering, for instance, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I just wonder what a young 18-year-old negotiator knows about spotting the signs of money laundering or anything else. And a lot of these things get ignored. And I just think we live in quite a high-tech world, so I think we've got to match it with sort of fairly high-class information, really.
Yeah.
There is another point actually as well. So although you don't have the training schemes in place as such, we have to follow a lot more regulation. As you say, the anti-money laundering, we have the gas safety certs, we have the electrical inspection certificates, various other bits and pieces that we've got to make sure are in place. So there is a lot of background legislation that we have to adhere to without necessarily having that tick box accreditation.
You see, in your world, Byron, you're dealing with mainly commercial people, you're dealing with corporate entities, and to some extent, although they shouldn't be subject to either incompetence or fraud or anything else, they are fairly savvy people. They're commercially minded people.
Absolutely.
Who could be deemed to be capable of sorting things out for themselves.
Yeah, I was just thinking about sort of our world, our industry. And you can almost put it into boxes. So you've got enforcement agents are certificated by the courts, and every 2 years that's renewed, and you have to now go through. I mean, we're highly regulated. I came into this industry at the very young age of 19, and it was sort of a bit of a black hole kind of thing.
You're only 21 now, so
I know,
you've done your 2 years.
It's been a tough 2 years.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Makeup, and now that's highly regulated. From our client side, they're regulated by RICS, Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. And clients engaging with us, and no different to our competitors and colleagues within our space, we tend to move on to trade associations which are cloud-based, which is we have to be sort of almost approved to be on it. So we've gone through and carrying indemnity insurance, etc. So we've been validated to be on the list of somebody that can provide a service. The person, if it's an enforcement agent, he or she are certificated, or if it's on our maintenance side, we have to go through all the insurance aspects, etc. So we're quite quite tight in our space. And of course, the audience, as you say, Stephen, they are commercially astute. They're entering into contracts all the time. So I think they look at us as a trades body and expect a level of professionalism because you're walking into a live environment.
Sure. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. That's all we've got time for today. So Neale and Byron Crellin, thank you both very much
Pleasure.
for coming in.
Thank you, Stephen.
Good to see you both. Thank you for your information given to our audience. I'm Stephen Galpin, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time on Property Question Time.